A lot of business deals seem to go all over the place this week. You got EA being bought out by Saudi Arabia. You got the idea that Netflix will want to buy Warner Bros., including the game studio, and a lot of RAM deals seem to be going to AI. Will these deals cause a domino effect? And if so, what's the repercussions? So let's deal with the RAM crisis. So it turns out that a lot of decisions have been made to abandon the consumer's memory business to focus on supplying AI data centers. So we'll look into this article on PC Gamer, which goes on about Micron's crucial brand no longer offering DDRs to PC users starting in February 2026. It says that there's a surge in demand for memory and storage driven by AI data centers, and Micron announced on Wednesday that it's made the difficult decision to exit the crucial consumer business in order to improve supply and support its larger strategic customers in faster growing segments. So that means no more selling to you, the consumers, or the retailers. It's going to be more focused on selling to OpenAI, ChatGPT, those sort of businesses now. It's even reported that Samsung is struggling to buy RAM for their own production of their phones. Sure, there's more companies you can buy RAM from, however, with this whole new market that's opened up, it does create a knock-on effect and a very high competitive cost. Meaning consoles could be more expensive, building your PC could be more expensive, upgrading your PC could be more expensive now. Another knock-on effect is that more parts might get expensive, not just RAM, but more parts, like mentioned in this article here, where it does mention that the ongoing RAM shortage and rising PC hardware prices. TrendForce reports that NAND flash wafer supply is getting worse, which will directly impact the SSD prices, and they're already saying it has. As well as not only the booming prices you have to deal with, but there's also still the scalpers around. It was then also reported that AMD graphics card prices could rise by $40 thanks to the RAM supply crisis, but the extra you pay could possibly even more. It says here that just a few weeks ago, they reported on the claims that AMD was planning to increase the prices of all its graphics cards due to the global RAM supply problem. At the time, there was no indication of when the charges were going to be made, nor how large the increases were going to be, but however, the first signs of the latter have been dropped on social media, suggesting that the price hikes will be $20 per 8GB of memory. Then we have another article that almost kind of confirms how things are, saying that rumours suggest AMD might rise CPU prices, but some industry sources disagree. Now, I'll put all the articles in the bio down below so you can give a quick read. As I don't want to copy the article and read it out word for word, I'd rather just inform everybody and try and get some conversation or some knowledge out there so you all know what's going on. So the next thing we'll look into is Saudi Arabia owning 93.4% of EA if the buyout goes through. So back in October, EA announced that they will be going private via a $55 billion leverage buyout. Then a week before Battlefield 6 came out, it was turned out that Saudi Arabia public investment funds were the buyers of that deal. If the buyout passes and the remaining shareholders approve, that would mean that Saudi Arabia's public investment funds would effectively own EA. It comes to no surprise that Saudi Arabia are interested in EA, with EA having EA Sports and Saudi Arabia having a large investment into FIFA. So what's the knock-on effect of this deal? Well, it could be job losses or work concerns, it could be creative control or censorship, it could be an increase in monetization with games like Ultimate Team, it could be a heavy investment in AI that could possibly cost human roles, it could be a operational shift into mobile gaming, as that's a lot of area to gain money from, and it could also be a risk for studios or IPs. Obviously those games that might not make a lot of money, or even the studios themselves, like recently with BioWare, those IPs and studios may be sold off to acquire some of the debts that they'll be taking on after the deal. Yet again, all this is just speculation. We won't know anything until any further updates or after the deal has been made. Let's move on to the final thing I want to discuss, which is Netflix agreeing to buy Warner Bros., including its game studios, for nearly $83 billion. Now, this deal also hasn't been finalized, as you also have Paramount, Skydance, actors, governments, and multiple studios and cinemas disagreeing and not wanting this deal to fall through. But if the deal does fall through, what does that mean for Warner Bros. Games? Well, does that mean Netflix will then provide a service similar to Game Pass, but with Netflix being on every console and PC? Possibly. Or does that mean Netflix will integrate Warner Bros. Games over to their streaming service, ensuring people will log on to their platform or gain more traction to their service and integrate their Netflix games, which officially launched back in November the 2nd, 2021, and try and make it more integrated for consoles, as it's only suitable for mobile games on Android and iOS. So does that mean that this could potentially be a competitor for Game Pass, which then causes a conflict with pricing? Will Game Pass lower their prices to compete with Netflix, or will Netflix increase their prices with the establishment of video games being included into their package with all their shows and films? If the deal does pass on this, it certainly does have an impact with things in the video game world, as it has done with the films. And what I mean by that is you've got Netflix creating their service for movies and such. You've got Paramount Plus doing their things. You've got Amazon Prime doing their thing. You've got Apple TV doing their thing. And it's all sort of damaged one thing going one or another. And is this something that could potentially happen to video games? All these multiple streaming services like Game Pass, EA, Ubisoft Plus, and soon to be Netflix, will all this have a strong impact in the markets of gaming? Will we all be saturated with multiple choices of streaming services where we can pay monthly and play whatever game we can of the month or of the time of the contract that they have? Will this have damaging effects to places like Steam or CD Keys or any retailer that we buy our games from? It's certainly something to think about. That's going to do for today, guys. Sorry it's been a while since my last video. I'm currently working on a video about Ubisoft and their history and their downfall, but I thought I'd get this video out because I kept seeing loads of information about these deals, and with the new consoles coming out around the corner and the new Steam machine, and then people wanting to upgrade their PCs, I thought people should be informed on what is potentially happening with the PC parts side of things. But yeah, if you like what you heard, please drop a like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.